Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome viewers to another episode of Pathways to Prosperity. And as we enter the new year, we say Kullu amun wa antum bi khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and every year, inshallah. The new year ushers in more often than not this idea or this mindset of reflection. We look at the year that's passed, we try and reflect on it, try and get better at what we do and put a plan in place for the coming year. And one of the things I know I do, I know many people do it in the month of Ramadan, but practice that I've done over the past few years is calculate my zakat in Muharram. And I suppose it's giving you that snapshot of reflection as well on your finances. And when you calculate your zakat, you actually get a sense of what you would call in financial terminology your net worth. And then you have to calculate your zakat based according to that balance sheet of yours. And tonight what we're going to discuss is this idea of the net worth of an individual, good financial behavior, mistakes that some people make in calculating their finances on an ongoing basis. And we're joined with our guest, Mehmood Essop, who is the head of money management and advisory at Standard Bank. Mehmood, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam. Nice to be here.
Mehmood, let's start off with this thing called net worth. We hear it in financial terminology, we hear people speaking about it, we hear different things, high net worth, ultra high net worth individuals. What is this thing that is high net worth?
Well, simply put, your net worth is everything that you own minus everything that you owe.
Okay.
So if you take all of your assets, minus all of your debts, like your loans, your vehicle finance, and all of those things. And if you minus that, what you owe to what you own to what you owe, you will get your net worth. So if I can give you an example, if you have a property worth 1 million rand and the mortgage on that property is 500,000, your net worth is 500,000.
Okay. So simple calculation. I take everything that I own and subtract that what I owe, and that becomes my net worth. Okay, now in calculating this net worth, it would possibly, in growing your net worth at least, which is a goal that many people would have, what are some of the key assets that people should look at acquiring to build a good portfolio in increasing their net worth?
So some of the key assets to acquire would be assets that grow in value over time.
Right.
So if you look at the property that you purchase and that you live in, it increases in value over a long-term period.
Right.
Other assets that people that we can buy to increase our net worth would be long-term investments in conjunction with your financial planner or in partnership with your financial planner, and according to your needs and goals, you can then set up investment mechanisms to then increase your wealth over time through these investments.
Okay.
And then I would say lastly would be an investment property. Buying an investment property and receiving rental income from that investment property. But just a disclaimer on that is just to make sure that your investment property, the rental income that you get from it, covers all of the costs that come with that property as well.
What are some of the mistakes that people make in calculating their net worth? We see people, in the society that we live in where everything is about the flex. You sometimes see somebody and you think this guy's a billionaire. But what are some of the key mistakes people make in calculating net worth? How, if I was somebody on the outside and I look at Mehmood, how would I know whether Mehmood's a high net worth individual or not?
So some of the key mistakes, it's a good question. I mean, some of the key mistakes that are made by us in general and people out there is not including all of their assets and liabilities, like your small liabilities or debt, your store accounts, your credit cards, your overdrafts. So you include all of that so you can get a clear picture of where you are financially. The other mistake that we make and that I've made in my life is thinking that buying luxury items that don't increase over time and that depreciate actually increase your wealth or your net worth, right? So from the outside, I may look like I am quite wealthy, but in most instances that asset or that purchase or that item is decreasing in value and doesn't necessarily add to my net worth. And if I can just add, there are some tips in which people can increase their net worth, right?
Give us some tips.
So several tips would be reducing debt. So if you've got debt, you've got loans, and those type of things, is to reduce your debt, which increases your net worth. Saving regularly. So starting with any small amount and making sure that you save on consistently. Investing is another thing. So start as early as possible and investing over a long-term period, whether that be in a whatever investment mechanism that you use, as well as a retirement annuity and so investments that have tax benefits as well. And then I would say also cutting down on unnecessary expenses. So if you go through a financial sort of plan, or if you're creating a budget, understand where your finances are going. You can then use that to cut down on some expenses. So not to say that don't buy luxury items, but if you have that plan, if you have that budget, you would know exactly what you can afford and what you can't afford. So those are some of those things.
We're speaking about budget, right? I know in my life, during the course of my life, I know I made some very big mistakes in budgeting. There were some key oversights that I made in drawing up my monthly budget at many times. What, from a money management and advisory perspective, from your experience, what are some of the key mistakes or omissions that people make in their monthly budgeting?
Either we have a budget,
yeah,
and it's not detailed enough, or we don't have a budget, or we don't stick to our budget. So there's various factors, right?
Right.
And I mean, if you look at your, if I can give an example, my budget, I've recently gone through a budgeting process at the beginning of the year,
Right.
and I picked up that I was spending on a daily basis when I get to work on coffees.
Yeah.
And that worked out to about 1,000 rand a month. Right. And so I had to make a decision whether I need to cut back on this and whether this is actually adding value to my life.
Right.
And so cutting,
you need.
yeah. And so cutting back by at least 50% of that, I could take that money and put it and put it into something else.
Right.
That's a priority in my life. Right. So other tips, if I can just give several other tips.
So on that one,
yes.
can I frame that or categorize
Yes.
it? Is sometimes we don't take those small purchases into account.
100%.
The daily coffee is not part of our budget, but daily it could, on a monthly basis, it's 1,000 rand.
It accumulates. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
100%. Just some of the other budgets, some of the other tips. Creating and sticking to your budget, as we mentioned, but making it as detailed as possible. So go through your bank statement, ensure that you take everything into account. And something that we have on the Standard Bank mobile app is the Budget Manager, which categorizes your expenses and your debt. And then, I mean, as a client or as someone who uses the app, you can go in and then start adjusting your budgets for certain categories or for certain items. The other thing would be to track your money movements, and that's also on the Standard Bank mobile banking app as well.
Okay, so tools available from Standard Bank to do your budgeting for you, and then you can also amend it and incorporate. But I think the key message there that I take away, and I know this is one of the biggest mistakes I made in my life as well, is we don't take into account those small purchases. 100%. You go to the shop, you buy chocolate, but you do that every day, or coffee every day, and over a year it's 12,000-15,000 rand of spending. So that was a very, very key thing that I learned in my life. So I think viewers, that's something very important. Don't miss out the detail. Don't overlook the small purchases on a daily basis. Mehmood, what are some of the other sort of parting financial advices that you may give to somebody? We know South Africa doesn't have proper retirement. Many of our South Africans can't retire, and that's why you see so many of our elderly still working, is because they don't have sufficient retirement. What are some of the key advices that you'd probably want to part with for us today?
Yes, sure. So in order to create financial success, especially for the long term, and specifically for retirement planning, you've got to start investing or saving as early as possible. This gives your money time to grow, to achieve your goals in the future, and for you to retire comfortably. And one of those aspects is actually sitting down with a financial planner and crafting this plan for you. At whatever life stage you're in, it's important to partner up with a financial planner who can navigate some of the obstacles and to navigate this road for you, with you, and until you get to retirement, and then also advise you in terms of some of the decisions that you make along the way. And then if I can just, I mean, at whatever life stage, if you are someone who's young and has just started work, it's really important to start investing early. That's the key to future success. And if you are at a specific life stage, you're getting married or you are having a family, it's important to sit down with your financial planner and to start putting that plan in place.
Mehmood, I want to just be a little bit controversial, and as a money manager, you'll try and eliminate this big controversy. Many of us in the day and age that we're living in today are sort of barely just breaking even. On a month-to-month basis, many people are actually in deficit. So the question that would beg naturally is, how do I even save? If I don't have money to meet my monthly expenses, how do you sit here and tell me that I must save? What would be your advice to the hundreds of thousands of people that are just at the breadline or just breaking even on a monthly basis? I read a stat the other day, and sometimes we take these things for granted, but the vast majority of South Africans, I think the average net salary, and that's from the 1% all the way down to the most basic of earners, I think was something around 20,000 Rand a month. So at that sort of income level as the average, you breaking even, you barely meeting your expenses, how do I save?
It's a very good question. I think if I can provide some sort of advice on that, it all starts with having a budget and knowing exactly where your money is going, right? It's the start, it's the foundation for you to get a grasp of where your money is going, where you can cut down, and what you need to do to achieve what you want to achieve. It could be anything, right? So, I mean, through my process, as I've just alluded to earlier, when I went through my budgeting process, I needed to save for my child's education, and I needed to start with 500 Rand a month. And in order for me to get to that, I needed to go through that my process to eliminate some of the expenses that I can cut down on. And I understand sometimes it's very difficult. You may just be breaking even, and so what I would suggest is also look at smarter ways of doing shopping, where you can cut back on expenses. So instead of shopping at a Checkers, a Woolworths, you can start shopping at a Checkers. I'm just using that as an example. And I mean that from those mechanisms, or from that process, you would be able to free up some sort of cash flow. And in terms of savings can start from 50 Rand a month. So you need, I mean, my advice would be to start with something, and as you start freeing up further cash flow, as you grow in your job or in your business, you can then start increasing your savings regularly.
So key takeaway there, viewers, is two practices. If I want to categorize it, it's the inculcation of two key practices: identifying what you're spending on and how you can reduce spending in certain categories, and with that saving, actually taking it and putting it aside into a formal savings plan for that money to grow for whatever you need to. Mehmood, Jazakallah khair, thanks so much for joining us, and I'm sure we'll have more conversations in the future. Thank you, viewers, for this very, very important one. Again, kullu aamin wa antum bi khair. We hope, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you this year, and may there be barakah in our rizq, inshallah, so that we may all strive and become, inshallah, having a net worth that is meaningful, that we can leave behind for our families, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.